Welcome to 1 Million Cups. We do this every week. Come here, meet at the Innovation Hub to talk about what's going on in the local community. Today we have Damon with Ambient Aquaponics. Aquaponics system is a highly efficient, highly productive new means of food production. So Damon, if we can all give him a standing ovation to get started.
Thank you guys. Like he said, my name is Damon Pellizzari. I'm with Ambient Aquaponics. We say healthy food for healthy people. Just to give you a real quick description of who we are. We have formed an LLC under another company, under an S5 Corp, which is just Ambient Enterprises. We've been officially up and running for over a year now with 3 full-time employees. Even though we've only been up and running as an LLC that long, don't think for 1 minute that we haven't been working on this for a long time. This is a process that we learned not just by doing research, but also by learning from our mistakes. It took us a long time to get our biology right in our waters and things like that to get them up and cranking and going. So we've been actually at this for about 5 years now, from the beginning. All right, how it works. Well, the very simple explanation is the fish create ammonia, and so does the feed that we give the fish and any kind of waste that are in the fish tank. We take that water and we pump it up, and we go into like media beds or something like that we call a raft system. Anyways, during that process, that ammonia turns into nitrates that then turn into nitrates, which the plants use to grow. And then that water is pumped or just gravity feeds right back down into our fish tank with no ammonia in it. So it makes it it's a really good cycle. You lose 90% less water than what you do with conventional gardening or farming. It's just a really good way for us to conserve water in a place like Lubbock. And I say this now, here we are getting rain like crazy. But you know as well as I do, it's not always like that in West Texas. You can also grow, everything that we grow we can grow a lot of produce in a very small amount of place. These are some systems that we built. These are some of the first 3. Like I said, the types of systems we have are media filled. There's a nutrient film technique that we're just now starting to try out. Just kind of playing with it a little bit. I think that's probably a direction that we're going to go with a lot of our greens. Then we have a raft-based system. The raft-based system is basically just got water. It's got a 3/4 inch piece of foam that sits on top. And we put neti pots full of butterhead lettuce and things like that. I don't have a picture of it here, but I think I do here in just a minute. I'll show the raft system that I have that we can actually produce close to 20 heads of lettuce per week in a 3x7 area in my backyard. But anyways, the types of media, you have expanded shell, which is really my favorite. It's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive. Then you have the clay pellets. It's getting a lot lighter, but you're talking about a lot more money. And then you're talking about crushed granite, which is what we have in this system here. It's very heavy, it works really well, but it's really hard to kind of move around and get things done that way. Let's talk about some of the benefits that we have with aquaponics compared to conventional growing or anything like that. Everything that we do is healthy and fresh. We don't use any herbicides, no pesticides. We don't use any preservatives on anything that we do. If I have a problem with some kind of insects or something like that inside my grow room or in my grow house, I go buy a bunch of ladybugs if that's what's going to fix my problem, or I'll go and find some other kind of insect that will take care of the insects that I have that won't harm my plants. Like I said earlier, water conservation. We can save up to 90 or lose up to 90% less water to evaporation as to any other kind of conventional farming or gardening. Maximum use of space, grow beds. As you see, these grow beds are just vertical. These are 3x7s. Usually I do 4x8s because they're a lot easier, just as far as to build. If you look here, the one in my backyard, I did some in barnwood, and I tiled around some of them, and I just did some kind of fancy kind of stuff. So if people wanted to put one of these on their back porch, they could go out and they could show somebody and they could look nice on their back porch. On the large grow systems, we make them look a lot more industrial. We don't spend all that kind of time on it. Another thing, vertical grow racks, so you can have shelving, you can put things on shelves, you can put lights on those shelves, so you can really maximize that space. And then we have grow towers, and I think I have some pictures here in a minute that you'll see some of those, that I grow like herbs, strawberries, mint, basil, things like that. Anyways, and I'm having to talk really fast because I didn't know that I was going to, this 6 minutes is a little hard on me sometimes. The opportunity. In Lubbock, there is a very large growing, there's a demand, a large increasing demand for organic produce, and obviously water conservation in this area, due to the lack of rainfall. Let's see, we saw the opportunity to start building these, or start building systems that'll take care of both of these problems. We can build a system that's 6 by 12 inches all the way up to a 100 by 100 foot greenhouse, which we are in talks with some people on doing that right now. Challenges. Well, when you come into Lubbock, Texas, and I lived in Hawaii for a little while, where this dream kind of bounced up. My mother had cancer when I just moved to Hawaii, and my mom calls me and she says, "Hey, Damon," she said, "I got cancer," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm getting on an airplane, I'm going back. I just got here, but I'm just gonna, And she's like, "No, just stay there." Well, while I was there, it really hit me hard. So I started looking and said, "Okay, why does she have cancer?" I thought my mom was a healthy lady. I thought she'd done everything right. So I started looking, and in Hawaii, my little inner hippie, just like there was a lot of that going on over there, and I started looking into organic produce, grass-fed, grass-finished beef, things like that. And I thought, man, this is what I want to do. I said, I think it's the food. I mean, if you go back 100 years looking at when our diet started changing, when they started putting certain things on food, that's when cancer, you just saw it shoot up. It started being a really big problem. So I thought, well, this is how I'm going to do that. But in Lubbock, like I said, it's not something that was really well known here. So when it was time to go and get money and raise money and do things like that, people were like, aquaponics, and the word that always came to people's minds was marijuana. And I was like, no, that's not even something we do. Number two, the biggest part about that is that's not even a very good way to grow it. So anyway, but they just didn't know a lot here in Lubbock. So it was really hard to explain what we were doing until we actually had some systems built and showing people what we were doing. But now when people come out and look at what we've got, they're like, oh wow. I mean, I showed my system in my backyard to a friend of mine, or to a guy the other day that has now become a friend, where we've got a 3,200 square foot warehouse that we're about to put one of these in. Like I said, there was a very large learning curve at the beginning of this, as far as figuring out biology and the way the water needed to be, how long you needed to cycle the water so that your fish wouldn't die. They tell you you're not a true aquaponics guy until you kill all your fish. I've done that 3 times. I don't have to worry about doing that anymore. I hired a fish guy, is what I call him. His name is Chris Sally. He had been doing submerged aquaponics for 3 years before he did immersed, which is what we're doing here. And it's a lot simpler for him. What's next? Like I said, we're currently in the process of building a 3,200 square foot system in the building. We also have 2 systems in Childress, Texas. One that's going to be anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 square feet. The other one's it's about a 20 by 20 building that we're going to put in that I'm consulting on now. And then just a couple of days ago, because of 1 million cups, we came in here and David Cruz gave a talk not long ago. And I came up to him and I said, man, is there any way we might be able to work something out with you guys? So I went and met with him a couple of days ago. And now we're potentially partnering with South Plains Food Banks and local schools, United Supermarkets. I'm hoping maybe get Texas Tech in on some of these things. And so that we can do a big project out there at Spirit Ranch. So that's something that we're really looking forward to. And impact. All right, impact on the community. All right. I don't know if you've heard of food deserts. those, but Lubbock actually has a couple of those here in this local area. We can build systems in low-income areas. We can teach the kids. They're going to get good, healthy, nutritional produce at an affordable price if they have that. If they have that in their neighborhood, they do this. They're doing this in a lot of places already. Schools, like I said, we can build the systems in schools. There's places in California that are already building them, that already have them in their school, and they provide their own produce for their students. And it educates the children in ways that are sustainable and better for our future when it comes to water conservation, which is also a big deal in California right now. Like I said, we build backyard and in-home systems. I can build them really small. I can build them, medium size. We can build them custom, or we can sell you a kit that's where you're doing yourself guys. We have a couple of those that we've already kind of put out there. And we offer any kind of customer service or and take questions at any time. Educational seminars, that's something that we really want to get into. We're not doing it yet, but I don't want to just be me and my staff. I want to bring in people from California, people down in South America, and places like that that are doing that. And just broaden the scope of what we can do with some of these things. Because you can actually go all the way into like municipal water filtration and things like that. You can reuse a lot of that water. All right, and I think that's going to kind of finish me up. I want to thank you guys for your time.
All right, great presentation. Let's start with questions.
I need a succinct definition of aquaponics.
A distinct?
Succinct definition, like a real short one.
A real short, okay.
Like what aquaponics is.
All right, well, we grow vegetables with fish water.
Thank you. Okay. Now wrap around. Okay. Thank you.
How well would this scale to a commercial style operation?
It scales very well to commercial style operations. Places like Japan and California have really gotten into some of these things because what they're doing is they're introducing these kind of things like the old warehouses, things that are kind of dilapidated. All you really have to do is go in and just kind of seal things off. You can produce, a lot of the time we'll grow about anywhere from a quarter to a third faster in these systems. And that's what I mean. That's what we want to do. We're going to some commercial size systems so that we can, really lower the cost for organic vegetables and local. I mean, if you take something to a farmer's market or even to a store, if you go into United and you see something that says local, people want to buy that. That's what they want. They want it, and that really pumps the local economy. I mean, if it comes local, I mean, you know that there's local people working, that's giving them jobs. So it really scales. And I can really get into some pictures and things down the road that show some really large systems that they're doing around the world right now.
Can you grow fruit?
You can grow fruit. There's the only thing that you've got to really be careful for, like if you're going to do, like he said, commercial or something like that. If you want to go commercial, you want to grow one thing, or maybe 2 or 3 things that'll grow in those types of in those types of environments or in those temperatures. Strawberries, for instance. Strawberries do really well in these systems. If you want to do those things like in wicking beds, and there's all these different little terms that I can give you. It takes a little while, but in my grow towers is where I grow my strawberries. And I'm actually in the process of talking to AgriLife out here on the north side of town. And I'm wanting to do some studies on strawberries and stuff and seeing what kind of, how fast strawberries grow in systems like this compared to what they do out in the greenhouse.
One other thing, do you see the potential, or do you have any response from, say, a farmer out here that's growing cotton, and he decides he wants to take about 4 or 5 acres and put up a building and set this system up in there where, you're not just growing one bed of strawberries or whatever, but you're tons of them because you've got United supermarkets, some of your other supermarkets that use the smaller farmers, and they're not buying from Dole and places like that, but they go out and buy fresh produce, from reputable farmers that grow for them. So is that a potential?
Absolutely. That's something that, like I said when I was sitting here, when we go out and build somebody a custom system, they'll tell me what they want to grow. I can bring my staff together, we can figure out, if you wanna grow that, we can figure out how to use your space at maximum full potential, how big you wanna do it. Do you wanna do it like what I did in my backyard and have a completely enclosed system with a mini split running in it, or do you wanna have a greenhouse out there that, and we have all different types of styles of greenhouses that we can actually build. I was a contractor in my previous life, but I mean, that's what I did for a long time. I had a small company down in Midland, and then before I even moved to Hawaii, that's what I was doing. And I got back here and I've done some of that. So as far as we're able to build anything. We've got some really cool ideas on some greenhouses. I haven't actually got to build one that I want to build yet, but we can build a greenhouse like out on a farmer's place. If they want to grow one type of a vegetable, or maybe 2 or 3 types that'll grow in that certain temperature, say 75 degrees, we can go in and we build this greenhouse and we wrap it once, and then in that first layer of plastic, there's these little holes in it. And then we put another layer of plastic right over the top of that, and then basically put fans down in the bottom of that. What happens, it starts blowing that air, and you create a vapor barrier between those 2 layers of plastic. So I don't care if it gets down to, 10 degrees outside. It's going to be 75 degrees inside your greenhouse, and so yeah. I mean, I think that there's a huge potential, and that's really what I would like to see, because if a guy's doing cotton, I mean, they can guarantee that for the amount of land that they could, put aside for doing this, and do a really good service.
All right, trying to figure out your revenue stream here. Are you, depending on just your kits and your projects to bring in your revenue, or are you participating in the planning and the harvesting and the selling of whatever product it is? And then you want to know what kind of fish were in
in my system. I give you the answers for all of those. Okay, so starting out, just like any small business guy, like I said, I had a contract. I've got a small contracting company. I've done some stuff. What I was doing is I was basically taking the money that I was supposed to be making out of that, and I was dumping that into this to get us started. On these, you're going to make money. I'm going to make money off building the systems, obviously, because I'm going to bring the knowledge and do what I have to do there. Something that I would like to offer, if I build a system, like say in somebody's backyard, or say a farmer, what I would like to be able to do at some point in time, which is why I have an S5 purpose, because I want to start a distribution company underneath that as well. What I would like to be able to do is go and buy that produce at wholesale, and then take that to restaurants, to farmers markets, and eventually get it into like some of the United supermarkets and stuff, and sell that to them, at my cost, and then have local produce. So that way they would have a way for that to go out. I have a place to go get plenty of produce, so I'm not running out when I'm going to talk to restaurants and things like that. I've actually talked to a few restaurants that are, the 3,200 square foot building that I'm doing right now, that's going to be primarily for restaurant production for certain types of lettuce and tomatoes.
So let's say I bought a big, or let's say I was in a 3,200 square foot system, and I own that. But we'd say we're going to grow something that we're going to sell to restaurants. You could be the middleman for getting it to the restaurants. Would you also be the farmer that would take care of the grower that would take care of that, or would you rely on me to be able to take care of that?
I would, that could work either way. The one that I'm doing here starting out, because I don't have a lot of employees right now, but I would probably expect you to do that part of, especially on a farmer's place or something like that. On this first one, I'm actually partnering with this guy. Since he's supplying the building, I'm going to supply the labor starting out, as far as getting all this stuff going. But then he's got guys that work for him for, $10, $12 an hour, and they're not always busy. And these are very, very self-sustaining. All you do is feed your fish and pick your plants. I mean, it's literally that easy once you get it going. I mean, granted, you've got to keep an eye on it, but you could walk away from one of these systems for 2 days and really not have a whole lot to worry about. We set up overflow systems, so if anything ever stops up or does anything like that, it'll overflow and you don't have to worry about losing the fish. Trust me, like I said, I've lost a lot of those. So, I mean, we've got a lot of safety nets in space, but yeah, definitely. I would expect, as we grow, I don't think that I'm going to, unless I make enough money, I can hire 50 guys to go out and harvest the plants. But starting out, I would definitely offer that right now. And now the fish question. All right, so in my system right now, we're growing koi. The reason I'm using koi, the only reason is because I can buy them for $1.75 a piece, and in X amount of months, I sell those for $20 a piece. You can use any kind of fish, depending on really kind of what you're growing. But tilapia are an extremely popular type fish in this, especially, I mean, you think what a tilapia is, it's really a bottom feeder, so it's not like really, it's not a great thing, but if you know what you're feeding that fish, then it's not a big deal. Catfish, trout, I really want to try Texas cichlids. I think that would be a really good niche here in Texas, just so because it's one of the only native cichlids here in town, or here in Texas, and it's edible. It's kind of a neat idea. And I'll let you know another little secret that I'm looking at. I really want to get into doing freshwater prawns. Like in Asia, they've been doing this for thousands of years, but what they do is they'll take the trimmings off of whatever plants they've got, and they'll take that and they'll feed that right back to the shrimp. What that does is that pre-seasons your shrimp. I would like to do that after I get a little time. I'd like to do that with Italian food, with Mexican food, things like that. So we'd actually have, and then I'd be able to sell, you know, a pre-seasoned shrimp straight to H-E-B or United or something like that.
Is it any different getting certified for organic in your process than it is in a standard process?
It's not much different. I'll tell you right now, I call myself more than organic. I have not gone through all the hoops to become USDA approved. What I can do is what I can do for people is I can say, hey, come look at what we're doing. Look at what I'm feeding my fish. You know, if that's not organic, I don't know what is. I'd rather, especially locally. Now, eventually, I know when you start talking about getting into some of the larger stores like Natural Grocers or Sprouts or something, and you do have to be USDA certified organic to call yourself organic. I've seen some organic operations that I didn't think were really all that organic, but you know, no, it's not any different as far as becoming certified. Sorry.
In the rest of the larger world in Texas, you said that this has been going on for a long time. So anything that's been going on for a long time has probably been studied by a lot of people from a lot of angles. I go to an organic store and I buy a head of lettuce that costs me $2. What does a head of lettuce produce your way in a larger scale operation? What do the studies show? You know, is there value? How do the cost of those two heads of lettuce compare?
In an industrial system, in a large system, it's the shipping is what usually gets you, obviously. So really, I mean, if you go buy an organic head of lettuce compared to buying another one head,
take shipping out, so locally produced, or
then you're going to get that for about the same price if you take all the shipping out, because you're getting rid of a lot of the shipping costs and preservative costs. I mean, these guys spray stuff on there so because they pick that lettuce or do whatever, they get all that a lot sooner off of where
it's fundamentally competitive.
Absolutely. That's the reason I want to do it. That's why I say, like, for the community, like food deserts and things like that, I want to be able to start getting good food to people that don't have a deep pocketbook. I don't have a deep pocketbook. I go and I buy these types of food because I feel like I save that money when it comes to a doctor. But, you know, it's really hard. I talked to a lady that cut my hair yesterday, and she's like, well, you know, I go into the store, and she's like, I want to buy this, but I know I'm on a budget. I have 2 jobs. So I look over here, and I buy this one. And I told her, I said, well, that's the problem I want to fix here locally for you. And a farmer or a producer can still make good money doing it. Especially like restaurants. I mean, chefs are going to come to you. They're going to want those kinds of things. I've already talked to a lot of those guys, and you know, you can make a little bit more money or margin on some of that kind of stuff. But I'm not necessarily about high margins. I would like to do quantity and bring that price down here and throw some jobs out there in the local community is what I'd like to see.
So a head of lettuce produced by yourself would actually cost less. I mean, it's not going to be a $3 head because an organic store sells it for $2, and you can buy it for $1 off of at the supermarket.
Exactly. So it's going to be, you're just going to end up balancing that cost.
The economics are there to produce this stuff at I'd say a minimal cost.
Absolutely. Like I said, in a 3x7 bed in an ideal world with everything working the way I want it to be working. In a 3x7 bed, I can do a small crop rotation, and I can have 20 heads of lettuce that I'll plant this week, and then I move those down, and then I'll plant 20 more, and then I'll plant 20 more. So I've got 4 rows there. Then I've got my other little lettuce plants getting started over here. So as soon as I harvest the whole plant here, I've got 20 more ready to go back into my system. And then in 4 weeks, those will be ready.
And you're just talking about a week to produce a head of lettuce?
No, it takes you a month to produce a head of lettuce. It does take you a month to produce, but what you do is you have your plant started in a little starter area so that you have it ready to go into, we start them in coconut coir or peat moss or something like that is what we get them started in, get them sprouted. And you're not all of those are going to make, but most you can always have 20 ready to go by the next week to put in the system. So yeah, it takes about a month, something like that, to get those finished out.
Just wanted a quick question and then maybe a suggestion. So back to the revenue comment earlier, I'll tell you, I'm personally a little bit confused if you're selling aquaponics gear, if you're wanting to farm, because you have lots of knowledge about the farming side. So I personally am a little confused as to whether or not you're a consultant for a farmer in this community, or if you are trying to start a farming operation, or if you're selling equipment. And just a comment there as you're doing your business, that I'm personally just a little confused. Not a problem, you can do all 3, that's great. But I did have a question. Have you talked to any of the master gardeners in town? So there's a group, my mom's one of them. I'm not a master gardener, but I know that they work a lot with South Plains College and Tech, and there's a lot of research grants that they do. So when you're talking about research and wanting to look at research around the area, I didn't know if you'd reached out to any of them yet.
Yes, is the answer to that question. I had a small system set up at the Science Spectrum for a while, and they had their butter flags going on. And then I also went over to Wolford and set up for their water expo that they did a little while ago. And I have talked to some people about that. I'm hoping to get a system at the library over at Wolford. To answer your question, yes, I do all of it. But as far as I'm concerned, what I'm really pushing is I want to go out and I want to build these systems for other people. I want my own system to do the other part, and if it grows into me going and harvesting that stuff and starting that distribution, that's what I would like to do. But primarily, we know how to build the systems. We want to get out there, we want to put them in, and we want to service those systems as much as possible. And we're still, I'll tell you, we're still in the beginning stages as far as the start of the actual applying this out into the real world. We know the numbers work, and we're excited about that part. In fact, the more we got into it, the harder it was, the more interested we got into it to make it happen. It was just kind of that way.
For a basic backyard custom-built unit, what is a typical price for a normal user, not someone that's trying to harvest and sell, but trying to harvest and consume?
For a family, what I like to do is say for like a family of 4, I like to do 2 4x8 beds or something like that, and maybe add some tower systems. And you can spend anywhere from $900 to $2,700, $2,800 on a system like that. But that's us coming, and that's us getting you set up. That's us working you through the process of cycling your water. So we're gonna go away for a little bit, and then we're gonna come back and see you. But we also have ways to jumpstart that water. We actually, in my system, I put these little rubber scrubbies in my. They're mesh scrubbies that are in my swirl filters, and I'll actually take those out and I'll drop those in a plastic bag, and I'm going to come and put those in your system so that we can jumpstart the biology in your system. So maybe it won't take quite as long, and we can take a little water out of the systems that are already up and running, and that way you're not waiting a month. When I started mine, which is about a 750-gallon system, it took us in between 4 and 5.5 weeks to get it exactly where we wanted it before I added a lot of fish to it. So
Does the water have to be monitored like a swimming pool?
Once you get the biology started, no. Now, I'm not going to say that if you put a fish in there that's sick or something like that you don't have to, you need to really keep your eye open for that, because if a fish dies, you want to get him out as quickly as possible. But most of the time, the biology in that water kind of takes care of itself. Sometimes you have to add a few things, but very rarely as far as monitoring. Once the water's set, you're usually pretty good. You're not adding any kind of nutrients or anything like that very often.
Any other questions?
So you just start with tap water.
No, okay, that's a good question. That's a very good question. No, what I do, we actually start with the RO water. And the reason for that is the water here in this part of the country is so hard. It's like, it's off the charts. It could be 8.2 to who knows when we've done some of our studies on it. So I run everything through an RO filter first, and then, like I said, whenever I add water to my system, I just add RO water to my system, man, because I never have to add more than 50 to 100 gallons, even if I just let it sit and go for 2 weeks or something like that. So it's really, you don't lose, like I said, you lose 90% less water than what you would if you were growing a garden outside. So, but yeah, you start out with RO water.
Rainwater, collected rainwater, is it?
Rainwater, just depending on where it comes from, you know, it depends on, and obviously, it's just, I'm actually in talks with the guy that I'm building a system for in Chilvis. He's real big into rain catchment. He's got all these rain catchment systems. I met him at the Wolford Water Expo, and I talked to him a lot about that, and I asked him, I said, you know, what does the rain look like? He said, actually, it just depends on where you are and what it came from and things like that. But what you can do is you can take, if you want to collect that rainwater, because I'm all about rain, I want to go solar, I want to do it all. It's just the way I am. But if you collect rainwater, you can actually just pump that rainwater through an RO filter, and you can do the same thing with this. So you're not losing it, so you can actually conserve a lot of that. And you do have a little waste when you use RO water, but nothing compared to, you know, when you start talking about the long term, because you have to waste it at the beginning. But and I will say these systems they're a little more expensive on the front end, but it's on the longevity and the sustainability is where you really start making the money long term on these kinds of things.
How long does the system last?
As long as you want it to. You just as long as you keep up with your fish and take care of your plants, and you know, you pick them as long as you just a little bit of attention. That's all it takes. It doesn't. I mean, you could have my system. I've had it up and running completely in my backyard for. Just under a year right now, and I mean I do a lot of experiments in my system. I mean I've tried beans and black beans and green peas, and I've learned what works in them and what doesn't. You know, there's certain things that like to be starved of water for a little bit, and other things that don't. Like tomatoes. I mean, just for instance, when you start talking about tomatoes, you go to the grocery store now and you get a tomato and it's beautiful, it's huge, it's plump, but you get a bite of it and it tastes like water. Well, what you have to realize is when it comes to tomatoes in a system like this, you want to have it in a place where you can turn the water off to it for just a little bit. Because right before you harvest your tomatoes, like say 3 to 4 days before you harvest a tomato, if you'll starve that tomato from water for just a little bit, the sugars in that tomato are going to start breaking down, and that's what's going to give you the flavor in your tomatoes, and then you can have a really good one. It tastes like you pulled it out of your garden.
Do you have to maintain your fish tanks like you would an aquarium in your home?
No, that's a really cool thing about these things. With the filtration, I didn't show a real good picture here, I don't think, but if you look at my fish tank, I got crystal clear water. Something that we're really looking at with Spirit Ranch is really, they have a pond out there next to their place. And he was telling me, he said, man, you know, we were having problems. It gets stagnated. It's really high in nitrates. We've got all kinds of fish in there. And I went out and I looked at it. They have some grass and stuff along the banks and stuff. They really don't have any kind of vegetation or any great aeration in that water. What I want to do, and I don't really want to I don't want to grow produce with that water that comes out of their well and stuff right now. What I would like to do is set just an aquaculture, just different types of plants, and like plants that we can put in, like certain types of maybe lily pads or something like that, and aerate it a little bit, and see what we can do about clearing up their water and making it a really nice, pretty place that doesn't smell funny sometimes. So, but I mean, it's an awesome opportunity, and that's something I'm really excited about.
So you're not scrubbing glass and buying sucker fish
No.
to keep the bottom clean?
No. You don't have to worry. And I actually use pool sand in the bottom of my fish tank that sits down there. And that helps with the biology and everything. But as far as on the edge, I mean, you have a little bit of bacteria growing like everywhere, but you want that. You need that. I mean, that's part of keeping your ecosystem alive.
With that $18 you made off that fish, okay? Because you think of the feed you take.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, when it comes to feeding fish, they don't eat a whole lot. And of course, the more you feed them or whatever you want to feed them, you know, just the cost of what you're doing, but absolutely. I mean, I figure for 40 fish, I'll probably spend, I don't know, probably about $60 in food, you know, total for the 40 fish, and you know, $60 to $100 depending on what I'm feeding them. And then they're going to be ready to sell, and it's not very expensive food, and especially when you start buying in bulk and things like that.
So it's really not the produce that makes somebody miss the fish.
And especially, and that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's something I really want to get into, and you asked about fish. I'm really wanting to get into the fish end of things, because the only difference is like the gentleman asked, he said, how hard is it to get into certain things? Well, there's a lot of regulations when it comes to fish and doing things like that. I mean, as far as selling them and processing them before you sell them, you can bypass that by selling a live fish to a chef or somebody at a restaurant or something like that, and then they can go and they can process that fish themselves at the restaurant, and they can sell it that way. That just takes a little liability out of what we have to do. And once you do, like the guy in Granbury that I've talked to a lot, he's already selling processed fish. He freezes it and sells it, and he's got tilapia, he's got catfish, he's got everything over in that area. So.
All right, and the last question is, what can we as a community do for you?
All right, Taylor, funny you should ask. I've been to one of these before. So, I said, what I put here is, listen, we're wanting to expand our business and would really like to find people in our community that share a vision of helping provide fresh, nutrient-rich food for loved ones. If you know anybody that would be interested in becoming a partner, investing, or helping us find a facility where we can implement large, high-production systems, we would love to get connected with those guys. Thank you guys.
So thank you.
All right.
Thank you.